Welcome to Sacred Conversations, a place where Dr. Nicole Dolan and I, Robin Bethel, along with a myriad of guests, explore some of the sacred threads and wholeness of life, held within the light and within the dark, held within the immensity. Thank you for being with us. In this episode, Nicole and I open into the sacred with Anniston Riekstins, a numerologist and transformational mentor for women, who speaks with us of her own soulmate love story, the deep commitment to following her own inner knowing that led her there, and the beauty of other sacred relationship mirrors, especially those she's found in community with women. Nicole and I had so much fun in this conversation, and we hope you enjoy listening.
Good morning, ladies. I'm so happy to see you both this morning. We have Robin here, of course, and we are joined by Anniston Riekstins. It is so nice to have you here this morning, Anniston.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. I've been looking forward to this conversation. I love what you two have created. It's beautiful. And I really have enjoyed the episodes I've had an opportunity to deep dive into. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being here. And Anniston is what I wanted to call a women's empowerment coach, but I love that we were just speaking about this off air and you use the term mentor to describe yourself, which I think is really, really beautiful and humble and deeply embodied, as I'm sure we'll get into. So I'm going to open us up and just ask you, Anniston, to share with us first who you are in the world.
Who I am in the world. I feel like it's changing by the day. I'm ever evolving, ever evolving. I am the perpetual spiritual student, and I have been for a very long time. And for the most part, I've been a willing one, which has been great, which has made things a lot easier. But I am someone who has been on a journey of remembering myself. And I won't say that I've fully arrived there because I don't think we ever fully do. I think there's always more and more to uncover. And in that process, I have learned so much about this journey and about myself and the world that I now spend time teaching other women to do the same. And that was just the natural extension, I think, of that yearning and that wanting to know thyself. It now is such a passion for me because it has made my life so much richer. And I love my life. Like, I am turned on and alive by my life. And I know what that feels like now, but I also know what it feels like not to be, which is a hard place to be. So who I am in the world is a transformational mentor, someone who I always envision when I'm in meditation and I'm envisioning the women and the students that I'm here to serve, that we're all standing in a line together. Not one is ahead, not one is behind, but we're all linking and holding hands and then just walking forward. That's what I've always imagined, which is why when you said coach, it's interesting because I always look at the coach as the person that's turning around and is ahead and saying, okay, you do this, you do that. And doesn't feel quite as aligned with, I think, what I'm specifically here to do.
Yeah, I love that image. It's beautiful and so needed for us to come more into community and connection, and especially as women in sisterhood. So, another question that we like to ask is kind of double back around after asking that question and say, okay, now tell me who you are. And just really tune into whatever it is that comes up for you when we ask that question.
Well, I am someone who is a disruptor. I think I am a loving one, an initiator, I'm an activator. And that's at the deepest level, I believe. I've come to really understand, I think we all carry codes for each other, codes of remembrance, these little things that we carry that when we're around that person becomes activated within ourselves. And so what I've come to understand is that I am the carrier, I believe, of codes of remembrance of what it is to live with an open heart. And so I started discovering this just through working with people and seeing it reflected back at me, this quality. And so, yeah, that's who I am.
That's lovely.
Yeah. So, the question that we like to really get into here and really open into is, tell us a sacred story from your life. And it can be obviously anything that comes up in this space. It can be part of the psycho-spiritual arc of your life. It can be part of what has brought you into this space and time that you are in now. And then sometimes guests, may have a story in mind, but then when we're sitting here in this space and time, like when we sit with each other, different things activate in us. And so there might be something else that's coming through. So whatever it is that comes into this space and is present with us, I invite you to bring us there.
It's interesting because there's so many stories that like come to mind, but the one that feels that I should share the most is a part of my life where I was in a relationship. It was my late 20s. I think I was 28, 29. And I had met someone who I was really crazy about. Him and I became very, very close, and we had a great relationship, and everything was perfect on paper. And then all of a sudden, I started getting pulled back into something that I had left behind, which was my spirituality. I was very, very spiritual early in my 20s. But then when I got into this relationship, it wasn't really a dynamic that was a part of our relationship. And everything, all the other boxes were checked. And I thought that would be enough. I thought that being able to connect on every other level would be enough. But I was being called to grow and I was being called to expand. And I think there was this fear that I was going to outgrow him. And we traveled the world together. I mean, I knew he was shopping for a ring. I started having these dreams where he would propose and I wouldn't know what to do. And I would wake up from these dreams just like, what would I do? I don't know. Why am I questioning this so much? Of course I should say yes. Of course, of course. And I just could hear like everyone in my head telling me how perfect we are together. But I just had a knowing. I just had this knowing and I fought it for a while and I would try and talk myself out of it and tell myself I was crazy and tell myself I was just, my standards were too high. I was being dramatic. But eventually that voice got louder and it started to impact me physically. Like I was just holding so much stress and strain and tension that I couldn't ignore it anymore. And I had to break his heart, which was really hard because I loved him dearly and I couldn't even tell him why. I couldn't even really articulate why. I just kept saying it's just a feeling. I don't know. It's just a knowing. It's a feeling. It's a feeling. It's a feeling. And 2 weeks later, I go to an industry conference. I was working in the cruise industry at the time, and it was in Orlando. There was a group of clients that were there, and my boss had said, "Hey, the clients are there. Will you go and entertain them and whatever?" And so I went down there, and they said, "Oh, you've just missed a drink order. Why don't you run to the bar? There's a guy named Rudy, and he's ordering drinks." And so I walk in there, and I'd heard Rudy's name. I had never seen him. I've never seen a picture of him. I didn't know much about him. Well, when I walk in, he turns around and I literally look at him and it's like I had the most intense experience of deja vu I've ever had in my life, to the point where it was so intense that I couldn't even speak. It felt like ages. It felt like I was standing there not speaking for 10 minutes, and I'm sure it was like 30 seconds. But everything in that moment, it was like worlds were coming together. It was the weirdest experience. And I couldn't put my finger on it. I was like, how do I know him? I know this guy. I know this guy. I don't know how I know this guy. And then all of a sudden, I remembered I had had these series of dreams my entire life, and he had been in them. And it was like all of a sudden, just those two worlds coming together. And after that, I was so shaken by it that I ignored him for at least 3 days. But he felt it too. And I think that it was my first experience really understanding, I think, the multidimensionality of all of us. And if I didn't believe before, I definitely believed then in past lives and soul contracts. And like, this isn't our first rodeo. You know what I mean? Like when you just meet people that you have this knowing with, this remembrance with. And he and I absolutely came together to work together. And we catalyzed really both of us once we met is when we catalyzed each other into our purpose. It was like we were ready and we were engaged 2 months later. We were married 6 months after that. But I think the reason why I felt it was important that I share this specific story is because this wasn't the first time that, in fact, this was certainly it might not have even be the third or fourth, like that I had to follow that knowing. I had to follow my heart, and it made no sense. But I think about if I hadn't have done it. You know what I mean? Like, what would my life look like? And it has defined me. Those big leaps that were yes, it was painful, and yes, it was hard. It's prepared me to take even bigger ones, which I have.
Yeah. Wow. I feel like there was so much imagery in that story. I felt like I was reading it in a novel, just going right along with you in the scene. And it's so beautiful. And you're speaking about knowing and following this knowing. And yet what I feel like is also present is really this sacred union that you are sharing.
100%.
Yeah. And I know when I've been in communication with you before, I've been curious about it. So it's kind of interesting, when you're talking about when we're sitting with people and we kind of light things up in each other. It's like whenever I'm with you, I'm like, I can feel that. So I don't really know what I want to ask you about it, but I'm kind of like, tell us more about this sacred union, and maybe what that journey has
Yeah.
been like if you're open to it. And maybe even if you're open to it, some of the harder or more growth edges of it, because that is part of transformation, that is part of growth, that is part of sacred union. And I know whenever I hear you speak about Rudy or tell stories like this, it's like it does feel kind of like it's always been perfect, which I'm sure it
No.
hasn't.
No.
So I find myself leaning into curiosity as like, okay, tell
Yeah.
us more. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so our relationship, I will say it has since the moment I met him, there's never been a question. That has been such a gift. Like I have never not I can't even think of one time I have ever said like thought to myself in silence in my own space in my head, was this the right decision? Is he right for me? Is this going to work? It's like something happened when we met where it's like it just like clicked. Something clicked. But I believe it's because I mean, I have a lot of beliefs here, but I do believe our purposes are very tied together, and we both are so committed to our own growth and our own path and our own purpose and mission, yet it's very complementary to each other. And so from the very beginning, like we would meditate together. We were co-creating together. And this is before we really even understood anything about sacred union or what that could look like or what the dynamics of or how powerful that is. Like we didn't know. We didn't know. We just were like, oh, we're soulmates. Cute. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
we're meant to
Yeah.
be together. She dreamed about me. Yeah. And so, but we've found out a lot along the way. But for me, it was at first it was dreamy. I mean, everything was perfect and it felt like we were just in such flow and all these synchronicities were happening. And all of a sudden it's like I blinked and we like got married, had a house, had 2 dogs. And I was like, what just happened? Like I literally left a guy and told him I'm probably never going to get married. And then now 6 months later, I'm married with a mortgage. And I mean, I've got a husband. And I mean, it was like whiplash. But then the challenges started, right? But what was interesting is it wasn't between him and I so much. It was things happening outside of us. And life became not easy. Life became very challenging. And we were both thrown into, I would say, a prolonged dark night of the soul. He was very hurt by being in business with his brother, and just they went from loving each other and supporting each other to it being very toxic. And it was very painful for him, which then was hard for me, and hard for me to be in relationship with someone who is going through that. And then I was going through my own, like, who am I now? Like, what's happening? I felt like I had been plucked out of my identity in my life so quickly that it was a gift, but then it didn't feel like it. Then it felt like I was losing myself. All my dreams and desires, now what, they're gone all of a sudden because I met Mr. Wonderful. Like, these were all
Hmm.
the things that were happening. And it was then that Rudy's spiritual gifts really started coming online. He's very good at channeling and he's very intuitive, and my own, like me just honoring my own intuition. And so we started, like, we actually went one time, this is coming forward, so I'm just going to share it. So we went and had a life between lives regression, which was really interesting because when we did that, we had them separately. We definitely recognize, like, we're both part of the same soul family. Like, I mean, I recognized him in that 4-hour time period, and I have a recording of it. It was so vivid. It was so clear that we worked together, and this is not our first time. And this was why the remembrance was there, and it locked in on such a deep level. But I think what has made it, what I would say is challenging, has never been my love for him or his love for me. It's that we don't allow each other to escape what's going on.
Hmm.
We're each other's
Hmm.
mirrors. So if he's feeling it and he's going through it, like, there's no, I'm just going to pretend like nothing's, like, he knows that's not happening. And I know the same. So I feel like he rooted me, he grounded me, and it was in that anchoring and feeling safety and being with him and in our relationship that the real work began. Not just up
Hmm.
here, not just the learning. It was like, now the real stuff. And since, we've learned so much about sacred union and how our energies work together, and what we've learned is that we're amplifiers for each other. So I amplify his gifts and he amplifies mine, and we hold energy for each other. We still have our own individual practices, but we really work together a lot on every level. So I'm sure that there's some questions you guys have in there. I mean, I've never actually talked about it fully like this on a podcast, so this is new for me too.
I just love hearing that just because I love the sense of getting to know you, Aniston. So I just love seeing into this window of that. And it's really beautiful. And I feel like I can completely see that, where I feel like there are all these sacred relationships and soulmates and things where sometimes being together is, a space where maybe you go through certain things together, like maybe challenges within are part of it. And then I feel like a lot of them, it's you kind of do a lot of that in your own space. And then when you come together, it's kind of different. Like you're not using the relationship space to kind of bring you to those places. Like you've each kind of come into those places. And I'm not trying to superimpose any words on your experience, but so I feel like I think absolutely then you can come together. And I think there can be so much flow and ease and knowing within the relationship. Um, do you guys do a podcast together, you said?
Our life, we started that 4 years ago, and then up until about end of last year, I was co-hosting with him. He was holding the majority of the energy of that, like, just because at the time, I had been working corporate and I just didn't have as much bandwidth or freedom with my schedule. And then when I left my corporate job in the beginning of January, I felt called to start my own show that I could speak directly to women, because Empowered Life is for men and women. But we still co-host together a lot. Like, I'll go on and we'll do episodes together. We love having conversations. It's fun for us. And they're also some of the most highly ranked of the shows that they have. So I think that everyone else, there's a curiosity there. I think what I've realized is there's a curiosity. People are like, they want to know how. They want to know, like, how do you have this relationship, and how do you keep that going? And when people are around us, what I find is one of two things, like when people come and stay with us, or when is either they will have a deepening in their own relationship, or they have an awakening that something needs to be fixed. And we're not talking about our relationship, but there's something in our energy. And I think that is a telltale sign of couples that are, I mean, some people call them soulmates, twin flames. You can call them whatever you want to call them, but I do believe those that come together from a sacred union perspective and then who are conscious of that. That's a whole other thing, that it's a very powerful awakener and amplifier and for other couples as well.
Mm, I really love that. And it makes sense. I feel like I don't have, let's see, the answer or the words, but I want to just hold what you're sharing, kind of like hold the energy of that, because it makes sense to me that that's what I tune into too when I'm with you. And who knows if that, actually grows into something that you guys wind up doing together, but I can feel that it's like the two of you hold this like mirror of relationship. And so it's interesting to have you speak to that and just kind of feel validation around, like, I'm like, yeah, when I'm with you, like what you're saying your audience feels too, right? And like your friends and people have this natural curiosity. And then part of it also is just that it's not common, right? It's not common. I think soulmate relationship connections is not necessarily common. I mean, it's something that I think people don't, at least in my experience, talk about a lot. I know I've certainly had them. And I feel like the people who I know who have had them have spoken about it. And it's such a beautiful experience. It's such a sense of, like you're saying, a knowing. There's such an amplification around energy and connection and synchronicity, and yet it's not always sustainable in human form. And so I think there is something really beautiful and curious about you sharing from that place what it is that you guys have experienced and have been able to co-create. The other language that comes through too is, I feel like there's such a difference between being seen and being loved. And I think that those deep soul bonds often are the places where we are seen. And maybe we don't even know why. We just know, like, I see you. I know that you see me. And that connection exists beyond, right? Like like you said, it can be in dreams, it can be in, just random thoughts. It might be years of connection that exists throughout time, maybe running into each other, a sense of timelessness, whatever it is, right? Like, it's magical. There's a mystical quality to it. And then there's this human experience of being loved. And I think of them as two different experiences. And so when you can be seen and you can be loved, I think that is really, for me at least, comes up around like the idea of really being able to sustain that type of connection, is both that soul bond and that bringing it into the human form. And it's not that common.
You know what? While you were speaking, something that came up that I think is important that I share. And this is where I feel like the illusion can come through of, oh, well, it's easy. It's just easy for you guys. It's perfect. No. And I would never use the word easy in any relationship, because relationships are here to teach us. There are mirrors. This is how we learn. This is how we grow. As Rudy and I have each, I would say, surrendered to the work, and as we have been healing and we have been processing and remembering, our relationship has strengthened unbelievably because we're coming back to ourselves. And so you will always be mirrored back in your partner. What is going on within you? Your partner can only love you to the degree that you love yourself. And I mean, I would argue with Rudy and I's connection and with all the things, I mean, just like he's the best husband on the planet. Like I can't even imagine, I can't imagine being married to anyone else. But for a lot of years, I wouldn't let him fully love me. No amount of his love could heal me. Does that make any sense? And that's where I think But when two individuals who are committed to coming back to their wholeness, their own individual wholeness, are in relationship with each other, well, that watch out, because now what you're not doing is you're not trying to take energy from the other person to fill a hole that that energy will never fill. But what instead you're doing is you're creating an entirely other entity. Like your relationship is its own field. It has its own potential, its own opportunity to create and manifest. And I think there's a lot, I mean, we could go down a whole rabbit hole on this, but that's, in my opinion, when you're around two people that are like that, who are in their wholeness, healed feminine, healed masculine, what it is it's a remembrance of what that feels like. So I think even as an individual, if they're not interested in learning about how to improve their relationship, but they're spending time with Rudy and I, what they're doing is they're experiencing what that wholeness can, those qualities can feel like, because we're all meant to have sacred union within ourselves, right? We're meant to be whole, feminine, masculine. And when you can experience that manifestation in your relationship, then you become teachers in the embodiment of that for other people. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it speaks to what Robin was bringing in too.
Yeah.
I love it too. I guess I just feel connected to this sense of you feeling like a catalyst for opening, with people. And in a way, just been centered a lot lately on like not anything in particular I meant to teach, but rather more just reflecting certain things in the world in a way that then maybe like if someone can feel it, then like what you were saying, like if they can remember this piece, it gives them an access point to then open into that themselves. And that's what I feel like I've been sitting with a lot in things. The sense of just reflecting things back in the world that help people reach for those spaces within themselves a little bit more. And also, yeah, I think about sacred union within self all the time and and beyond. But that is what I think like we're all called to do so much is that sacred marriage within ourselves, like our own precise different composition of divine masculine, divine feminine, and whatever balance we're meant to hold. And then like really that marriage together then is just magic in the world. So
Yeah, 100%. And
yeah.
you said something about the amplification, and while you were speaking, I was remembering. So for me, this year just brought about a tremendous amount of change. I left my corporate job that I loved, but I just knew, again, it was one of those proverbial leaps that I was being asked to take into the unknown. It was time, and I knew it because I know what that feeling is. And so because of that, a lot of my circle changed overnight. And what I've recognized looking back now, as we're in October and looking back over the year, is I was naturally attracting in different women into my life as mentors, as friends, as people that I'm in community with, that I recognized when I first met them. I was like, I really love this quality about them. Like I would notice, like, oh, wow, they're so authentic, or man, she's so powerful, or man, she's such a truth teller. And in my spending time with those women, those qualities have developed in me. And I can see it so clearly because there was that stark shift. You know what I mean? And I think women getting rooms with other women and putting yourself into community with women who are holding the frequency or the qualities of what you admire, because if you admire it, it's in you. 100% it's in you. It just needs to be activated. And by spending time in their proximity and in their presence, even if it's virtual, it can't help but be activated and expanded within you. And so we will always grow faster and expand, I believe, in an easier way with others, not on our
Yeah.
own in our little meditation pillow. Listen, there's a place for that, right? But I'm naturally by default a lone wolf well, I would say this year for sure, not anymore, because I see the power. I see the power of it.
Well, and I think collectively and astrologically speaking, we are coming into that time, right? You both probably know this well better than I do, but we are coming into that time of group and connection and
People are your
community,
power.
and your
Mhm.
people are your power, which is absolutely beautiful. And I look forward to this time to see what comes through this time, especially being in a time right now where we are in such great divide. So, something else that was coming up, and I was like, oh, I want to share that is I had actually shared almost that same thing with Robin when I met her. I don't know if you remember this, Robin, but I had said, maybe not right when we met because it was a vulnerable thing, but there was some point when I said to Robin, I was like, I see so much of myself in you. Like, I feel like I saw so much of myself in my reflection in Robin. And I remember sharing with you at some point, Robin, that it was like there were, just to your point, Aniston, there were qualities in myself that I hadn't fully embodied yet. I'm such a strong woman, you know, I'm a double Capricorn. And I just found out recently in Vedic astrology, I'm a triple Capricorn. So I am a pretty intense woman. And so I have a very like highly developed masculine. And it took my own, journey and time to really come into, well, what is the feminine to me and what is my own heroine's journey? And I remember meeting Robin along that path and reflecting back to you at some point, Robin, that I felt like Robin, I feel like it's just so deeply embodies the feminine, and it just came to me in this way. And I'm not really finding the right words for it, but just this feeling of like, I started to, when we first started working together, I started to probably at first project those qualities, like you're saying, right? Like see them in her and not necessarily see them in myself. And then over time, I started to embody those more in myself. So, really withdrawing that projection. In the Jungian world, we call it the golden shadow. So, I started to see more of myself and embody more of those parts of self in this relationship. So, I wanted to share that.
I do remember us talking about that for sure. And then you went into your own wild journey with that. Absolutely.
Yeah, which is kind of interesting if you think about it, because I think when I had met you, I had written this book and gone on this journey of this hero's journey, right? And then that was even an invitation to go into my heroine's journey. I mean, I had already been on it, I just wasn't conscious of it yet. But that's interesting to think of that timing and that alignment too. Hmm.
I think you attract in the people. It's not something you necessarily have to go out and find. It will happen naturally. I just think becoming conscious of it so you can start to see it for yourself, right? You can start to see the purpose in the relationships that you have and the people that are coming in and what qualities that you're noticing in them. And it just means you're ready for it. It just means it's like, okay, it's time. You're ready to develop
Yeah.
this quality now.
Yeah. Yeah. What are some ways that we might find ourselves on this journey? Because I think we're all speaking to this from a perspective of maybe not necessarily recognizing that that is the journey, or when we're speaking to this heroine's journey, what comes up for you as far as when you say, like, it will come to you, you don't have to go looking for it, you just have to recognize it.
Well, I think that the hero's journey, as you know, feels a lot more comfortable to many of us because it's okay, I'm going to go out and do something. I'm taking action. We know that scene. We've majored in that scene. Like we all know what that looks like. But when it comes to finding yourself, if you will, it's the counterintuitive approach. And it is, I think, slowing down and creating stillness. Even today, what's I'll share with you today, this is just an example, I think, of what this journey looks like because it's never ending. It's not like you just all of a sudden one day you're like, I've arrived and I get my check mark, like I did a great job and now I can go live the rest of my life. There's always deeper levels. And I think it's a way of perceiving yourself and your life through the lens of this divine feminine who's also in perfect balance with her divine masculine, who knows that there needs to be a pretty healthy ratio in your day of receiving and creating, receiving and executing. And it doesn't have to be, the 20 minutes in the beginning of the day where you're like, okay, I've meditated and I've journaled and I've done my feminine thing. And now I'm going to go be in my masculine for the next 23 hours and 30 minutes. That's still out of balance. And so I will set these, I have every 3 hours, these little reminders come up on my phone and it says like frequency check. And this is where I just drop back into my body, whatever I'm doing. If I was on a call with you right now, I've trained myself. It's when I drop out of my head back into my body. And I'm like, what am I feeling right now? What am I sensing? What's going on? And earlier today at 9 a.m., my frequency check went off and I dropped back into my body. And I was surprised actually to find that I felt stress. I felt anxiousness. I felt restlessness. My body felt restless, almost like she needed to stretch. And so I had planned, a very masculine brain. I had my to-do list and my things that I had planned to do and get done. But I knew that the energy that I'm doing it in is more important even than the doing. And so I went to the park. It's a beautiful day. And I went and walked. And for 30 minutes of that walk, I now call them my priestess walks, but this is where I get to just talk to her. Like it's like I'm listening. I put on music and I find when I'm walking, it's easier for me to hear. I don't know if you guys find that sometimes, or like
Hmm.
I'm in the zone. And if I'm getting my body moving, it's like I can hear my own soul's voice so loudly. It's almost like I'm sure the people at the park think I am crazy, but I have my headphones in. They probably just think I'm on a call. I literally talk out loud. I'll be like, what is happening? Why am I feeling this stress right now? Tell me, show me. What do I need to know? What am I not seeing? And without fail, something will drop in my head. And it's like I'm having this conversation and I'm creating this space. And then I was like, okay, now I get to go back. And then I got back into doing. But I came back in a totally different energy. And I think that is the finding yourself. The finding yourself isn't something you just go away for a retreat for 5 days and you found yourself and then you go home and go back to your old routine. It's a finding yourself in the moments and in the day. Again, coming back to yourself over and over and over again. And eventually it starts to become a bit more of your default mode where you'll notice that you don't need a reminder on your phone. You'll sense the minute your energy shifts and you're like, ooh, interesting. I'm sensing this because but I'm like you, I'm a Capricorn and I am very earthy. I'm very in my head. So that took some time. I had to have those reminders. In fact, every hour I had to have, now I've bumped it back to every three. So I'm working my way. I am a work in progress.
You were kind of noting the continual being with dropping into your body, which could also be like dropping into your heart, like your heart and your body, and listening to that. It echoes what you were saying earlier too, just like you've had these moments in your life, defining moments where you listen to your heart, even though it makes no sense. And just like the trust that you'll do that. And so I feel like you're describing that just in micro form, and it's just like a way of being. And if you can be in relationship with your life that way, it can infuse the daily rhythms that become just your way of life and these really big things that orient you and change your whole world all the time. I also want to mention something that we haven't talked about today, but I saw one because I didn't know you before. So I took a look at your social media page and I noticed you touched on surrender a lot.
Mhm.
And so to me, we've kind of been talking about like what ways you think people can help come into themselves, connect with that within themselves more. And it's like this listening, dropping into your body, dropping from mind to body. But I also feel like the willingness to surrender really does shift how things meet us and alchemize within us, like everything is on its perfect rhythm and it happens when it's ready. It happens in the right pattern. But if you are in a space of surrender, then everything does just happen so much more.
100%. It's so interesting you bring this up because it's been a hot topic in our house this week. I will get like these random, I don't know if you guys experience this, where I feel like I call them my spirit team. My spirit team will like just drop something in my head, like, go grab this book. You need to read this book again. And I'm like, I've already read this book. I don't need to read. You need to read it again. And I will go. I'm like, okay, I've just learned to listen. So a couple nights ago, I was getting into bed. We always read before bed. And the book I saw that dropped in my head was one of my all-time favorite books, The Surrender Experiment, Michael
Singer.
Singer. That book changed my life. It changed Rudy's life. It came at the perfect time, as they always do. I think it was like 10 years ago when we discovered it, or maybe a little bit less, but it came at a time where we were really at a fork in the road and we needed to surrender, because something, I believe, like an opportunity was wanting to come in, but we were so gripping. We were so gripping our life that I think we were becoming the obstacle, right? Like, we're just holding on. This is the vision. This is the way it's going to be. And what I teach women is how to experience a life of ease and joy and synchronicity and flow, which doesn't mean perfect, which doesn't mean no challenges, but what it means is embodying this frequency of certainty, which is the most powerful frequency that you can embody. Because with certainty, you can relax. It's like you exhale, you're like, everything's going to be fine. You know, when you're certain about something, when you're certain that the next breath you take, there's going to be oxygen in it, that you're not going to be gasping because all of a sudden there's no more air left. Like, that's how we live in a lot of areas of our life, where that fear that we're going to be gasping. And then you think about the areas of your life where you have certainty, you don't even think about it. You just know. You know because you know because you know. You don't even need to waste brain cells on it. You're just in this energy of just being held and being, we know the sun is going to come out. We know the moon is going to come out every night. Like, there's certain areas there. So we know it's possible. So why can't we make it possible in every area? Because we've never had control. We think we do. And yes, I do believe we're co-creators and we will always have our will. And we have the opportunity to choose how we respond in any given moment. But when you can surrender, you no longer are creating resistance to receiving. And I believe we are here to receive and to receive it all. And when you get out of the way and you can just trust, number one, your nervous system will naturally re-regulate. I mean, it takes some time. It takes some time. That's the thing. I mean, you've got to allow that, because we've been conditioned, when you've been in fear and in scarcity or in survival mode. And Nicole, I'm sure you've probably written books on this, like, for a long period of time, it doesn't just, the switch doesn't happen overnight. But I spend a lot of time teaching women how to start day by day loosening that grip a little bit more, noticing, even just bringing awareness to when they're white knuckling. And then just saying, could you breathe into it in this moment? Could you acknowledge that there's just as good of a chance that it's all going to work out for you as there is that your mind is telling you it's not? Could you agree that, you know what I mean? And just helping them start to relax in the moment. In my life experience, the more relaxed I have been, the more in joy that I have been in the unfolding of my life and what is happening, and not attached really to how it looks. I mean, the craziest, most amazing blessings have come. And they did not look at all how I thought they would look. I couldn't have
Right.
even imagined them. I could never have even predicted them. And so I believe surrender is the way, but it's active surrender. It's that feminine masculine flow, right? The feminine is surrendered, right? The divine, healthy, healed feminine is, but she's the receiver of ideas. She's the receiver. And then once you're like, okay, it feels aligned, then you move into, now let's execute. Let's use these beautiful bodies we have and our ability to act, because action is required, but it's not because you're trying to chase something or force something. You're just responding to. You're responding to something that's already happening and unfolding. So, yes to surrender.
So the way that I first met Anniston was actually through a community that we came together as part of bringing different gifts to, and you had brought astrology and
Actually, it was
numerology. It was
numerology. Yep.
numerology. That's right, numerology. But coming to this astrology question, and numerology might even come in here, but I'm going to try and articulate this well. So, from my lens as psychologist and depth psychologist, so having a deep knowing intuitively and being tapped into the collective, but not having the background that you do in astrology and numerology. So, I'm wondering what might come through as I share this. In my field, as we know, The Body Keeps Score came out about 10 years ago, I think maybe longer now. It's still, one of the most top selling books, right? And so I think most people actually think it came out more recently than it did. And why this is coming up and what I'm speaking to is where we're really paying attention to in this time now, how, trauma is stored in the body, how the nervous system is such an important part at not even an important part, it is where we need to do the work in order to be able to show up in these ways that you're speaking about, right? To be able to come back and check into the body and make sure that we're actually living here in the present, in this now. And something that's really interesting is so I've been doing therapy for about 15 years now, I think. And I got to watch kind of these waves, if you will, over time of what people were working on. And I remember a specific time where people started to come into embodiment. And it did start with like that era of The Body Keeps Score. We started paying attention to trauma in the body. We started coming from being in the head, right? Processing cognitively down into somatic processing. And when we came into this time where we practiced, we paid attention to, okay, trauma in the body, then we moved into where we are now, which is we're really focused on the nervous system. We're really paying attention to embodiment. So my question becomes like, how does this align in the collective as far as like the timing of this or astrologically speaking? Because it was like, I want to say, as a therapist who witnessed this over the years, it wasn't just that we had new research, new books, polyvagal theory. It wasn't just that we had this new information coming forward. It was actually, I literally watched symptoms start to show up in the body in ways that they just didn't before. So, this process of healing and coming into the now and coming into embodiment through nervous system healing feels also like it really aligns with something deeper or part of the plan, if you will. So, I really wanted to ask that because I've been curious about that.
Well, Robin, I'm sure you have some ideas on this as well. I mean, I can absolutely tell you that this is where we are. So, like at 2020, I remember because I follow astrology and I study astrology. I was watching all at the end of 2019, and all these astrologers were like, I mean, this is unprecedented. We've never seen any alignments like this. We don't really know what's going to happen. So I was going into that year thinking, this is going to be interesting. And in numerology, it was a 4-year, which is really about it's where it's going to show you cracks in the foundation of your health and of your relationship. And you're going to feel limited. You're going to feel all of these things. And this was the universal year. And I was like, oof, this is going to be interesting. And man, it was a very Saturn like year, right? It was a very like, this is going to feel hard and this is going to feel slow and this is going to feel like you're being restricted. But it was highlighting and showing people certain things, right? And I think that really started to create a crack for a lot of people in their awareness and specifically as it relates to their health. Like you couldn't ignore it anymore, right? It was that taking away of certain things that you couldn't, just escapism was a little bit more limited to certain things. But astrologically, what's happening is we are all being purged, literally purged. So when you say things that are coming that are health issues that have not, 100%. Because what's happening is we are all being asked to raise our frequency. Mother Earth is raising her frequency. And we need to raise too, right? And so as that's happening and we're coming up against these different frequencies, impurities, negativity in the field are going to start being expressed as bodily symptoms that show you, oh, something's ready to be purged. Something's ready to be purged. And so having a toolkit, I think that's the key. So right now, numerologically, we're in this 9-year. We're at the end. This is the year of the snake. This is the year of the shedding of all the things that no longer serve you including behaviors and habits, and bringing awareness to things that need to be released and let go. So, a lot of health issues, a lot of people becoming aware of not just I'm feeling this way, but why? Like that
Mm.
question. And I think as the energy is and the vibration of this planet is rising, thanks to the planets as well, like with the action in Aquarius, and we are all going to start like our ability to conceive of things that maybe we just didn't have the concept for or the context for or the ability to before. So all the planet alignments are like right now, October, November, December, all supermoons. And they're like double whammies. Okay. So the purging is not over. I hate to tell you, but the good news is you will be new. Like, I mean, in ways that you will not understand. Like, we are all being made new. And all the eclipses in September. Holy moly. I don't know if you felt those. We all felt those.
Mhm.
But because I study astrology, I know exactly what house they're happening in for me. I know exactly what's being activated. So you can either be the willing student who's like, let's do this. I'm ready. Like, let's clear the decks. Or you can fight it and hate it and resist it. But either way, it's happening. So
Right.
it's like,
Yeah.
what do you want this journey to be?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I know Robin really looks, I don't know if you would say studies, but yeah, Robin studies some astrology and has such a love for it too. And so I've gotten to learn some things through her as well.
Think it's all gonna come back. Like, it's coming back. People are starting to remember, I think. Like, "Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Mhm.
This is not a new thing. This is an old thing." Like, ancient I mean, for so many years, like, before time, I mean, the moon was our guide for everything. Like, the women's cycles were lined up with her and revered, and then also the planetary alignments and understanding the energies and how they impact us, and so I think it's coming back.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's beautiful, right? And as we are remembering ourselves, the planet in itself is remembering
Yes.
itself, right? Right. And so it is really, it's a trying time, but it's a really beautiful time. And, gosh, I feel like we could go on all day. So I think that we'll probably wrap ourselves up here. Any final thoughts or anything that either of you wants to put into our space today?
I'll just share that I love your energy so much, Anniston, and it's been so lovely to just get to know you and listen to you. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Robin, and thank you, Nicole. I feel like we've said it all. I'm just kidding. We've taken you through the gamut, but it's always for me, it's such a gift to be in a space with women, because I do believe we're medicine for each other, to just be real and open and curious and to be willing to see the gifts, to be spend time with women. I guess what I want to say is this. Now more than ever, your people are your power, but you need to choose who's at your table. And that's going to be sometimes that's hard, right? But when you own that, you'll start to notice new people coming in or people that just will surprise you and bless you. And what they're doing is as they're coming in, they are just acting as mirrors back to you, showing you your gifts, revalidating your value and your worth. And I think we're able to see each other better that way and see ourselves better that way. And so I am always open to get into a room of open hearted women who have pure intention to serve and to lead. So thank you so much for having me.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you for being with us today. If you feel called, follow the podcast wherever you listen and connect with us on Instagram or YouTube at sacred.conversations.podcast. And most of all, may you keep opening to yourself, to the mystery, and to the story within you that's still being written.